So, for example, it's a Holocaust. I'm not sure who said it. We're so brilliant at everything. We're the best doctors, the best accountants, the lawyers. We're so brilliant. We control the world, they claim. We control the media. So we're so brilliant. How come we can't do a real genocide?
We choose not to.
In Gaza, population has basically increased 50% over the last 30 years. So what? We're great at everything but genocide? By the way, the birth rate and the rate of population in Gaza has increased more than in Egypt. We're good at everything but genocide?
Hi everybody, this is another episode of Zionist Cafe, and today our special guest is Rabbi Pearlson, a very special personality and a great rabbi. I have experienced him many times in sessions, and I was thinking 3 characteristics about you is that you are very knowledgeable about Judaism. Really, that always impresses me how you play with everything and how you share so much wisdom. You have a great sense of humor. You are standing up for Judaism in Israel in a very good way, in a very strong way, and you're very kind and nice to people. I wanted to share that because it's not your official bio, but it is really your bio.
I don't know why, but I've always had difficulties listening to compliments.
Take them in.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. I don't think
Appreciation. I am not saying to be rude to you. It's appreciation. Really, really, really.
Listen, I'm not that humble. I don't know why. I just don't like compliments. I'm not that humble.
Okay, but you're honest. So you have an impressive resume. It will be posted underneath in the video and, of course, in the description. So tell me a little bit about yourself. You studied in yeshivot.
I used to joke. People say, where were you trained? You have such a diversity of experiences. Where did you train? Where did you go to school? And I go, hey, I've been thrown out of some of the finer yeshivas. Here locally, Hebrew Academy and the Mesifta and the Talmudic University. But also, I spent 2 years at Lubavitch Yeshiva in New York. Mm-hmm. I lived in a dormitory from the ages of 14 to 16. Then I went to Israel. I studied in Israel. Then I went to Yeshiva University, undergraduate. And then I went back to Israel for ordination. And in between that, I got a bachelor's and a master's in science and microbiology.
So wonderful. And yeah, you have this all-round education. And then you were ordained Orthodox in Mount Zion in Jerusalem. Very special.
Diaspora Yeshiva.
That's fantastic.
I was very close with Rabbi Goldstein, the Rosh Yeshiva.
Wow. Yeah, and then you came to Miami.
Well, actually, I grew up in Miami. We moved here when I was 5 years old. My father was a farmer in upstate New York, not far from Buffalo. Yeah. And I'm number 9 of 9 children. And my sister right above me, number 8, she developed a severe allergy to hay. And you couldn't be on a dairy farm and be severely allergic to hay. Yeah. So we packed everything up. My father sold the farm and we moved to Miami Beach because the doctors recommended someplace where there's no hay and the prevailing winds come off the ocean, so there's no hay, no pollen. So I'm a returnee. We moved here when I was 5. I became director of education when I was 25. Yeah. Then I came back when I was 30 to be the rabbi.
Wonderful. Until now. Amazing.
So now, 37 years.
You came with a beautiful question. Ask me how it is to have 5 sisters. You don't have brothers?
No, I have 1 brother. There are 7 girls and 2 boys, and I'm the youngest of 9.
You're the youngest of 9. 5 sisters, that was how you phrased it. 6, 7,
So being the youngest of 9, and my oldest sisters were 21, 20, and 18 years older than me. So it was like
a lot of mothers.
Having like 4 mothers.
A lot of mothers,
in fact, it's hard to believe, but I actually was a very delayed speaker. And my sister Pearl, I was 4.5 years old and I still was not talking. My sister Pearl, may she rest in peace, she took me to the University of Buffalo to one of her professors. She was taking classes there in child psychology. I remember it because I was 4.5. He put me on a table in front of the whole class and he did an IQ test with me. I was putting round circles and round openings and doing all this and asked me, point to this color, point to that color. And at the end, he basically said to my sister, the reason why he's not talking is he doesn't have to because he's got 8 siblings and 2 parents. They did everything I wanted. I would point and I would grunt and they would give it to me. And he said, just make him use his words and you'll see he'll be able to talk. And I remember that night sitting at a table. I told this to a psychologist. He said, I remember sitting that night in my high chair and pointing to food and they refused to pass it to me until I used the word. So the psychologist said, 4.5, sitting at a table in a high chair. Yeah, I see there's a problem there. So I was the baby to a lot of siblings.
And you're such a well-spoken person today. And I have a friend in the Netherlands who had the same story, didn't speak the first 4 years either, and he's one of the most well-known successful lawyers in the Netherlands. He also made up. So then you have, 20 nieces, and you have 70 family members altogether, and 22 of them serve in the IDF.
But October 7th, within 4 weeks, nephews who are beyond the age of conscription, 5 of them, even though they're over the age of 45, 3 of them were in their 50s. They reported for duty, they were accepted in uniform, and they were in Gaza within 48 hours.
Yeah.
In addition to that, an additional 17, their total 22, nephews, great-nephews, and or spouses of nieces were at one time all in Gaza.
Yeah. Well, how are they doing?
That was psychologically seeming like some of them are having challenges. You can't do what soldiers have to do in war and come home and think it's not going to affect you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
One niece she was served in Gaza, and I have a picture of her in uniform with her M16, and she was in charge of guarding and searching women who had been taken into custody. And she came home after her tour of duty, and then her fiance came home, and even with therapy, he called off the engagement, he went into seclusion, and he's undergoing significant counseling.
Yeah.
He would have been a nephew, but the idea is you asked how they're doing, and like I said, is difficult. You come home with many levels of scars.
I work with a few. I do it pro bono to do some therapy who are good in English because my Hebrew is not the greatest. It is so impactful. But also, how I see we have 2 traumas, October 7th, October 8th. And what came with that? It's unbelievable the time we are in today. How is that for you? I remember last time I was in Shul 2 weeks ago, you spoke about the New York Times, what was happening there with Nicholas Christos or so.
So I lose sleep over what's going on in Israel.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And I don't have to keep a safe room. I don't have to keep my television or radio on to make sure if there's a siren going off that I can make it to a room. I don't have to. Yeah. And if I feel so much stressed here in Miami Beach, how much more so must our family and friends in Israel be?
Of course,
it's very significant. Regarding how I deal, it's very concerning. Everyone has something they can do. Everyone has a job.
Yeah.
And here I am 6,000 miles away. That doesn't mean that I am allowed to sit here and lament what's going on without responding.
Yeah.
So in Pirkei Avot it says, Lo alechem lecha likmor, lo taben chorin lipatel mimeno, which means just because you can't finish the job doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility to try and start and do something. And that's what I try to teach everyone. Everyone can do something. If it's writing a letter to the editor, if it's making a comment on an inappropriate posting online, if it's calling our senators, our congressmen. I told you I was going to bring my cell phone to this interview, but on my cell phone, I have the White House on speed dial, I have our senators on speed dial, I have our congressmen on speed dial. That's something we can do because everything compounds, everything adds up.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if 100,000 people would call and complain to their senator, be pro-Israel? That affects decisions.
I know, because I do like in the WhatsApp groups, there are letters that are made ready for you just to sign. Fantastic. So agree with what you say, and I encourage that also often. And people, they go back, they forget about it. So they're like, I'm comfortable here, you forget about it.
Right.
So recently you said in your drasha, in your sermon, what is the most important thing for a Jew to do? And you mentioned 4 things. Can you say them?
You want me to remember what I said a week ago? Oh my God. Don't you know I'm like an old man?
I'm sure you do. What's the most important thing for a Jew to do? And it ended with what you're doing. Your actions, your deeds. It's not being kind. It's not, all important.
So I really don't remember the 4 things. But there's a misconception that faith is so important in Judaism. For example, a lot of the world's words that express belief have their origin in Hebrew. So, for example, amen. Oh yeah, I believe. Comes from the Hebrew word amen, which comes from the Hebrew word emunah, which means faith. Yeah. So in other religions, faith, belief is enough. So, for example, in our sister religion in Christianity, all you have to do is believe in Jesus, that he died for your sins, and that he's your personal savior, and that's all you have to do. Have belief, and you go to heaven. Judaism is more demanding. It's really not what you believe. It's really not what you think. It's what you do.
Yeah.
It's what you do that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So that's why I emphasize with a challenge. I try to challenge people all the time, especially as part of a Devar Torah at a sermon, speaking words of Torah, because throughout the Torah it says Shamor v'Zachor. You remember Zachor v'Shamor and then do something, observe it. So remembering is very intellectual, but it doesn't accomplish anything. Remembering is non-tangible. It's part of that faith-based system, but it's not enough. It's our actions and our deeds that make a difference in Judaism, in the world, because otherwise it's all theoretical.
Yeah.
Judaism is very practical. It's what you do.
Yeah, I love how you said that, and I spoke about it the coming days after that too. And what I also explain to people also when they're not Jewish, doesn't matter about the power of the mitzvah, that you do something for the deed of doing, to do good, but you do not expect something back in return. There is so much for you to give and receive. Yes, it's nice to receive, but you give purely to give without thinking, oh, I might get that back. The calculation.
I totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. However, can I add something?
Sure.
No matter how much I'll do a mitzvah for its own sake, I end up being the one who gets the most out of it. For example, if I feed the poor, that poor person is getting the benefit, but not as much as I am, because I feel so good after I do such a good deed. Now, I use this as an example because although it happened over 25 years ago, it really, really made a difference in my life. It actually changed my theology. One of my children was home with a high fever, and the doctor called in a prescription for antibiotics. So I went to Walgreens on 65th Street. I went in, I got the amoxicillin, and as I was coming out, Walgreens also has a liquor store. And as I walked by the liquor store, someone goes, "Hey, Rabbi!" I turned around. Like, sure, a Jew wearing a yarmulke, they called me Rabbi. I turned around. He goes, "Rabbi, I haven't eaten in a day and a half. I'm really starving. Do you have any change?" And I said to him, "I'd feel a lot better about giving you money if you went in front of a liquor store." And he goes, "Rabbi, I'm in front of a liquor store because it's open till late and people are walking in and out." So I go, "You know what? Right across the street," it was like 10 o'clock at night, right across the street there was a Chinese restaurant.
Let's go.
And it said, all you can eat, $10.99. So I took him across the street and I go, "You haven't eaten in a day and a half? Come on." So I went in, and he goes, the proprietor wasn't very thrilled having this homeless person in there, but he goes, "Can I have a Coke?" I go, "No, you can drink water." So he goes, "Can I have dessert?" And I go, "Yeah, you can have dessert." So I added up, came to $14.99. And then I left, I added a tip. So the whole point was the guy sat and now here's the question. Did I do a mitzvah? Yes. Did I make him feel good? Yes. But let me ask you a question. How long did he feel good?
Until he was hungry again.
Like 6-7 hours? All it's Chinese food, maybe an hour. An hour after you eat Chinese, you're hungry again. But here's the whole point is 25 years later, I still remember what I did and I still feel good.
It is such an example. It reminds me, it's a bit off topic, but a little bit the same. I went to Whole Foods here in North Miami, and there was a guy asking for food. He said, "I'm hungry. Do you have some little cash?" And I said, "If you're hungry, what can I bring you? I will buy you," because I know what happens with the money. I didn't say that, but I thought that. And he said, no, I'd rather have money because he likes to go to Wendy's across the street. And I was like, "You're not hungry. You're not." Or you give a bottle of water, say, "Here's a bottle of water," like a big sparkling, and they look at the label for how much can I exchange it back to get the money. It's sad too if you're in that position. This is like a kind of a joke. I still will, because there are many stories. It is just sad if you end up there. Yeah. So there is something else interesting that is, why is Menorah, Temple Menorah? You are for so many years a rabbi of now 35 years or so?
37.
37?
But who's counting?
Mazel tov. I don't. Yes, 37 is 10 is 1, so that makes it very simpler. Why is it disproportionately represented in community leadership? And what else is it like that you go for causes and that you also step very much up to the plate for the Zionist movement? What are your visions here?
I'm extremely proud of Temple Menorah. Whenever I go to any event, if I go to a JNF event, disproportionate number of Temple Menorah, not only in attendance, but in its leadership. If I go to UJA, Federation, disproportionate attendance, disproportionate number of Temple Menorah people are at the leadership. You name the Jewish organization, Israel Bonds. For example, Temple Menorah, I'm here 37 years, 35 years, we are the largest Israel Bonds appeal in America.
Fantastic.
Which is really in the world, because Israeli bonds appeals are minuscule compared to what goes on in America. A close second, I believe, is the Persian Shul in Los Angeles, and there's another one. One year came really close, the Shul in the Hamptons.
Oh, you keep an eye on it.
I'm proud of my synagogue.
Yeah.
So again, the question is why? I think that a lot of it has to do with the significant Zionist attitude that we are able to embody here at Temple Menorah. I think everything comes from Zionism. What? Rabbi, that's a little demanding statement. In actuality, not. About 15 years ago, there's something called the Jeffersonian Bible, or the Red Line Bible. I believe it was Jefferson. Whenever Jesus said something, they put a red line under it. So I decided to do something similar. Wherever in the prayer book, in the Machs or the High Holiday Prayer Book, wherever it mentions Israel or Jerusalem or Zionism, I was going to take a yellow marker, a yellow highlighter, and mark the page so that while I'm praying, I could focus on praying for Israel, praying for Jerusalem, praying for Zion. And the point was, after about 70 pages, I had to stop. Now, the Machs is like 400 pages?
Yeah.
So why did I have to stop after 70? Because I was highlighting so much that liquid yellow highlighter was undermining the integrity of the page. Almost every single page, I think the most I ever went was like 3.5 pages before I would find another place where it talked about Jerusalem or Zion or Israel or our return. And the point is that, and I held up the Machzor on high holidays, and they said to me, Rabbi, why are you such a Zionist? Because I'm Jewish? Because it's integral to who we are as a people? Forget about the text. The Bible, of course, is all about Zionism. It's about Israel. It's about leaving Exodus of Egypt and going back to Israel. It's a journey. Abraham came to Israel, because obviously the Bible is Zionistic. But our response is the prayer books. We wrote the prayers.
Yeah.
So in our thoughts, our prayers, for no less than 2,000 years, every prayer orients us towards Israel and towards Jerusalem. So why are we disproportionately represented? I think it all stems from that idea. If we are to have a strong Israel, we have to be strong Jews.
Yeah.
We have to be strong Jews.
Yes, I so agree with what you say. How do you explain it that so many American Jews today have different thoughts, to say it in that way?
I think that culturally and socially, we have developed over many, many generations a Jewish philosophy of siding with the underdog.
Yeah. And
because of that spiritual attitude, sometimes we've lost the proper path. And when I say by the proper path, it's like Tikkun Olam has become a religion. Tikkun Olam literally means to fix a broken world. Tikkun Olam means taking care of the oceans and the garbage and the ecology and global warming. But then it got more specific into Black Lives Matters in our generation. And now it's Jewish communities, the more liberal and progressive communities are emphasizing that Tikkun Olam of siding with those who would see us harmed in the land of Israel, because they are so unfortunately indoctrinated to support the underdog and to fight for the underdog that they forget that they are Jews, and if I am not for myself, then what am I? Yes, they are, one of these organizations uses Hillel's statement to the negative. Yeah. If I'm only for myself, then what am I? Yeah. But the idea is that, no. First, we have to take care of ourselves. When you're on an airplane, in an airplane, they warn you that in case the cabin depressurizes, an oxygen mask will fall from the overhead compartment, and you're supposed to put it on yourself first and then worry about children or elderly. We have to take care of ourselves first. Yeah. We have to take care of Israel, and we have to take care of the Jews first. Yeah. Yes, Tikkun Olam is very important, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the Jewish people. It shouldn't be at the expense of Israel. Is Israel perfect? No.
no country is.
No person, no country, no religion, no faith. No, agreed. But that doesn't mean you side with our enemies.
Yeah. I gave it a name, reversed loyalty syndrome. Like people like Gabor Mate, and there are more, I don't want to even mention the names. It is almost like I want to be better than them, I want to be the goody-goody, or I want to be loved and liked, because it is also not easy to be the only one and getting all that crap over you. I have had that a lot in my upbringing, and I don't look Jewish, so you hear more. So I know all these kind of things. I know how it can work. So it's just hard to be the only one and then to get all that negativity over you. When I bought my first siddur, I was in the conservatory, then I was 20, and I was proud of it and happy at my first siddur. I was myself going to shul. And my friends opened it like, wow, do you believe all this crap? Really like this. So there is also that problem.
Were they Jewish?
No.
Because usually, when I was at the University of Florida,
yeah.
I used to walk around with my yarmulke and my tzitzis. Christians thought it was great.
Yeah.
The Jews had like tucking those strings. You don't have to walk around the university. Why don't you wear a baseball cap? They were embarrassed.
Yeah.
Right. The Christians thought it was cool.
Yeah, but in Holland, you don't want to be Christian either. It was like, you're not religion, right. Anti-religion. That is one way.
Yes.
But I think what I see in America, to my disappointment, because we came here because my kids were afraid to be Jewish. So it was like, not again for me and my husband. That's why we left in 2004. People didn't understand it, but you could see it hanging. It was very integrated me in the interfaith world. I had Muslim friends. I learned a lot about it from them, and I read the Quran, which nobody does. I think every Israeli or every Jew should read the Quran to know what they're talking about. That gives also a lot of clarity how they think. They think differently. Sure. I think also, but I see politically, let's bring that a little bit up, that most of the Jews that are related to the Shoah in their backpack have also that overcompensating for what happened to us. That's what I heard a lot. You should not do to others. You have no idea how many times I have been attacked. I worked for Amnesty International when I was 21, 22, until that all came over me. And it was like, you do to the Palestinians, the poor Palestinians, I have to say, poor Palestinians, what they did to you. So no, it's not at all the same. But it is also that collective consciousness of guilt that in Europe is very present and the entire world, as you know better than I do, closed their doors. But that collective feeling of guilt, you don't want to feel guilty. So if you can make the victims say, oh, they're actually also rotten people, see what they do, and that makes them feel better and you want to get rid of it. But I see also in that a lot of Jews almost have that. We don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yep. Do you have a question? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The only comment I can possibly think of is that I definitively take umbrage. I find it very insulting when people claim that what's going on in the Middle East today, specifically between Israel and Gaza specifically, is a Holocaust. That shows me that either they don't know what the Holocaust was or they're ignorant of what's going on today. So I also take umbrage when people say, oh, I actually wrote to a company, I don't know, they were talking about there is a Holocaust against dogs and that dogs are being mass murdered and that we have to adopt dogs and make your donation to the prevention of cruelty to animals and et cetera, et cetera. What's happening to animals is a tragedy. And anyone who knows I love dogs. In fact, just last night I was on the floor playing with a dog. That wasn't even mine. But my point is that it's a tragedy what happens to animals. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But that's not a Holocaust. And to use that term demeans the true tragedy that occurred during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. And likewise, when people say what's going on, what the Israelis are doing is a Holocaust, that means they don't know how horrible the true Holocaust was, 1938 to 1945, or they don't know what's going on in Israel today between Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
So, for example, it's a Holocaust. Please. And I'm not sure who said it. It may have been Bret Stephens. I'm not sure. But we're so brilliant at everything. We're the best doctors, the best accountants, the lawyers. We're so brilliant. We control the world, they claim. We control the media. So we're so brilliant. How come we can't do a real genocide? Because a genocide,
we choose not to.
In Gaza, the population has basically increased 50% over the last 30 years. So what? We're great at everything but genocide? by the way, the birth rate and the rate of population in Gaza has increased more than in Egypt. The rate.
Yeah.
So we're good at everything but genocide?
Yeah.
And, of course, there are other scores of reasons that prove that there isn't a genocide, let alone using the term Holocaust is tremendously offensive to me.
But that is done on purpose, I think, because you hear also Gaza is an open-air prison, concentration camp, and then you have Jews that use the same words and that give that propaganda, that they do the same stories too. There's a kind of joy, or to say Israelis are like Nazis.
So having organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace or whatever, and all these organizations, if not now, etc., all these Jewish organizations, as anathema they are to mainstream Jewry. For example, we have a member of the congregation at the forefront of J Street until it became prohibitively anti-Israel. And now he's not ashamed of what the time he spent there, but he does explain that he no longer supports it for a number of years now because they've taken their animus towards Zionism to an extreme where now it is anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, this is nothing new. For example, 2,000 years ago, there was a prayer called the Amidah. It's also known as the Shmona Esrei, the 18 benedictions, 18 prayers. If you count, there's not 18, there's 19.
I didn't know that.
Because the rabbis added a 19th blessing. It's actually a curse. Lamal shanim al tiyeh tikva. And to those who side with our enemies, there should be no help that God should punish them. So 2,000 years ago, there were people who sided with our enemies against us. It's nothing new. Capos in the camps that sided with our enemies beat us just as viciously as the Nazi guards did. This is nothing new. Them siding with our enemies against us, it's unfortunate. However, we live in a generation where, what's the saying? Man bites dog. So now you have Jews who are anti-Israel. That's making the front pages of newspapers.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad. Yeah. And does it have to do also with education? I have a feeling that people don't know history well enough. And the history of Israel, even Zionism. How would you say what is Zionism in one sentence? How do you phrase that?
Some people believe that the best definition is the belief in the Jewish homeland. I will take it to the next level. The belief that Jews have a right to return to their Jewish homeland.
Because they are expelled.
The right to return to their Jewish homeland. Not only are we entitled, we believe that we should return and we have the right to return.
So what do you do personally when you mentioned J Street? I looked at that list and there are 1,000 rabbis and cantors on that list.
So there aren't thousands, but there are a lot.
I don't know where I got that number from, but it's somewhere.
Right. So I'm active in an organization called the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. And this organization was started by Rabbi Stuart Weinbach in Potomac, Maryland. It was started in response to 100 rabbis and cantors who wrote a letter questioning Israel's tactics and methodologies in Gaza. It was about 7 years ago. And it was such a damning letter that New York Times, they covered it ad nauseum. It was the front page for at least 3 days. And what was really upsetting is not only were these rabbis and cantors and cantorial and rabbinic students, some of them weren't even rabbis, but it wasn't that they were progressive and liberals. They were progressive and liberal rabbis who support Israel. The point is that many of them were not even ordained. Many of them had never even been to Israel, and their foundation was groundless. But we responded. How do we act when we're confronted with this mindless anti-Zionism by Jews? So what happened was we started this organization called the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition. It's all about rabbis. Because rabbis have to respond. We are the tip of the spear. I can influence 1,000 people on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Those people will influence their children. The children can influence their fraternity and sorority sisters. It makes a difference. And it has to start with rabbis. But if you think about it, in microcosm, there's a rabbi in every family, a mother and a father. And it starts with the way a mother and a father instruct their children. Education is the most important thing, and proper exposure to the truth. Now, is it broken? Yes. the system is broken right now because there's a disproportionate number of lies, misinformation being generated and being promulgated by unfortunate technology known as the internet. But that being said, it was Rabbi Nachman of Breslov who said, if it's broken, it can be fixed.
Yeah.
And I'll prove it to you. If someone would have told you 25 years ago that Saudi Arabia would have a high school yearbook, a high school textbook, in which the state of Israel was on the map, would you have believed it? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia? Mm-hmm. That's why we thought they were moving towards joining the Abraham Accords. All of a sudden, Israel's not the great Satan in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Would you have believed if someone told you 25 years ago that Abu Dhabi would have Israelis protecting it and using Iron Dome protecting the United Arab Emirates? Yeah. Would you have believed that?
No.
So the idea is things change.
Yeah.
Things can change. So if it's really, really bad now, it can change. We could flip the coin and make things better, but everyone has to do their part.
Yes, everybody has to do their part. That's a beautiful way of ending this. Do you have a message for people what they can do in general? Because you mentioned of your speed dialing. I don't have that. I sign the letters every day. Is there something you can recommend to people that haven't found it yet?
So my response is, do not underestimate the power of a vote. It's very important that you have to vote. It's very, very important that you have to be vocal at so many different levels. So, for example, if you're waiting in line in Publix and hear someone make an anti-Israel statement, you have an obligation to respond. Tap them on the shoulder and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but what you said is incorrect. Yeah. People have to learn that you cannot lie or promulgate lies without being confronted. Everyone has to respond at every level. If you're standing in line in Publix, if you see an online comment, leave your own message, but also make sure that you make your voice heard at the political level. And that's very, very important. Everyone can do something. Everyone can't do everything, but everyone can do something. And that being said, it adds up.
Yeah, I so agree with that. When you were speaking now, I was thinking about what I hear from some Jewish friends that come from big Jewish families. Great. And politically, everybody has different opinions. There's usually a large group there from the other aisle, so to say. And they say, we just don't speak about politics. So nothing changes also. They have a hard time. They're so afraid. They tell me often, Caroline, you cannot speak in this country about politics and religion. And I say, yes, you can. You can listen. You don't have to have always, you can have the conversation. You don't have to chop each other's heads off right away. People cannot do it.
Many of us have noticed that there's been a specific change in the culture of dialogue and conversation.
Yes.
I remember 30 years ago, C-SPAN was relatively a new thing. And I remember watching C-SPAN. And I'd be watching Congress, and the tone in Congress was so different. People may not have agreed with one another, but they stood up and they said, I disagree with my esteemed colleague from the great state of Massachusetts.
Yes.
And they spoke nicely about one another.
Yeah.
But also, for example, we had two Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Justice Scalia. They were diametrically opposed politically, and they were best friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes they used to go to the opera without their spouses and sit next to each other. They used to go on world trips. I think one of the famous pictures in India.
That is such a great example. And I don't understand. I say it in different words usually, like, where is the time being that we indeed said, let me think about it. That's interesting. Maybe I can learn here something. We should be allowed
and we should be able to speak about politics and religion, but we have to do it respectfully.
Yes.
And I think that culturally we've lost that ability in the last few years.
I agree.
And I don't immediately see it better.
No. There is one method, I'm a trainer in that, it's called nonviolent communication. That has great techniques, how you speak in a certain way, in a structure, that helps to keep the connection. There are now 700 new trainers all over the world, and that is a beautiful answer too. It's, by the way, developed by Marshall Rosenberg, who was in Jewish schools, not in Jewish schools, in public schools, faced a lot of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And they had to change their name because if they were going through the country on vacation and say, oh, we would like to sleep here. What's your last name? Rosenberg. No, we don't have place. So they changed it into Ross. Well, thank you so very much. We need to have the hope right? We need to keep
Absolutely.
the hope and our actions.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having this beautiful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I
It's a real
hope to get
bracha.
you back for another conversation.
Absolutely. I'd love to join you whenever you'd like.
Okay, thank you for watching, and please
Thank you.
subscribe. You know the button is there below. It's very simple to do, costs nothing, but it helps the channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Yeah, you say shalom.